Hello, lovely souls. Well, Pluto is about to station direct for the penultimate time in Capricorn. Now, first of all, before I start, just please subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, if you listen elsewhere, I would love it if anybody listens on Apple podcasts, if they would leave my podcast a review. The more reviews, the better, the more visible the podcast gets. But let's dive in. So yeah, Pluto is stationing direct on October the 10th at 27 degrees, 53 minutes of Capricorn. Now, this is, as I said, the penultimate station direct before Pluto leaves Capricorn completely and moves into Aquarius on November the 19th, 2024. So I'll look at those dates in a minute, and I'll look at this particular station. But I do want to say there's, in my opinion, there's an inordinate amount of fear around Pluto. And everybody's thinking, oh, Pluto's leaving Capricorn. Oh my God, everything's going to be magical. Well, in my opinion, that's not true. Now, this particular journey through Capricorn has been quite challenging. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, but the reason why this Pluto journey through Capricorn has been so transformative and chaotic and has revealed all this corruption in our structures and systems and man-made laws and governments and poke the holes in it is not just Pluto, it's the aspects. We had a Pluto-Uranus square for about 4 years overall, and then we had a Pluto-Eris square, and then we had a big conjunction in at the start of 2020, all in Capricorn with Saturn and Pluto. It's been a particularly aspect-laden time. And I do not fear Pluto. Pluto has gone over nearly every planet in my chart, and Pluto does have a heart. Pluto is certainly the planet of transformation, death, rebirth. Pluto has this certain intensity to it. It can be associated with crisis, but it's also deep soul desires. It's also associated with elimination and digging up what's the rubbish that needs to be thrown out, but it's also the planet of rejuvenation and metamorphosis. So I've found all my Pluto transits, and like I say, it's gone over pretty much all of them, are very transformational. But you have to kind of lean in. My favorite phrase for Pluto transits is Pluto takes away what you thought was your power and leaves you with what is truly your power. So I'll go into this actual station a little bit more in a minute, but I do want to talk about Pluto moving into Aquarius because everybody's so excited. So Pluto did dip into Aquarius early this year from March 23rd for a little while. Then it's been retrograded back into Capricorn. Now it's going to move forward and move into Aquarius in 2024 with one short retrograde back to the very last degree of Capricorn before finally ingressing into Aquarius late next year. So just a quick look at what Pluto's last journeys in Aquarius brought, just, to kind of give you an idea of what might be coming. But remembering that we didn't know about Pluto back then as well, but he was still there, still still existed. But anyway, Pluto was last in Aquarius in the late 1700s. Okay. And that was a time of revolution. It was a huge time of revolution. French Revolution, for example, but also a lot of revolutionary sociological changes, not just necessarily violent revolution, but it was really considered, it was about 1778 to 1798. Most historians consider that an age of revolution. So there were some major political, social, and social revolutions, and we can kind of see that coming already. And I think it's probably necessary globally. Going back further than that, Pluto was in Aquarius from about 1532 to 1553. Now that had the Protestant Reformation, which challenged the Catholic Church's authority. So we can see that it's kind of a time of reformation, forming new constitutions, all kinds of things like that. It's not necessarily associated with war. Humans have been at war for almost all of known history. Apparently about 8% of recorded history shows that there were no wars on this planet. So, you know, don't fear Pluto going into Aquarius, but Pluto definitely digs deep. He's the great excavator, shit excavator, I like to call him sometimes. Whoops. He definitely digs up what's not needed, but he also mines diamonds. If you think about Pluto, if you think about excavating and digging up, that can dig up little gems. And Pluto transits often kind of dig in and polish your inner gold and your inner diamonds and your inner strengths. So they can be a very empowering time. So anyway, that's my little lecture about not fearing Pluto transits. So, but also don't necessarily think that Pluto in Aquarius is just going to be all magic and lovely. It's, you know, there's other things going on as well. We're definitely entering an age of air in so many ways, the air element. So there's going to be a lot of reformation and rejuvenation and new ideas coming in many ways, but we also see the advent of AI building up, and how do we use that, and people fear the rise of the machines, you know, all that kind of stuff. Well, we really don't know exactly what's going to come yet, but it's going to be a time of reformation of many things, okay, politically and socially. Okay, but this particular station, let's share the screen. So this Pluto is stationing direct on October the 10th at 9:09 p.m. Eastern time, so adjust for your own time zone. It'll be October the 11th for many of you. And this is the degree, 27 degrees, 53 minutes of Capricorn. Now I'm going to draw some of my lines on the chart. This is in a quincunx to Juno and Black Moon Lilith over here in Leo, who've been accompanying Venus on her summer's retrograde. A quincunx is one of aspect, is one of adjustment. It's saying, you know, what have we learned through that Venus retrograde and through this Pluto period? And where do we need to shift and make changes and make adjustments? And I love that this is to Juno and Black Moon Lilith. This is about, you know, digging into letting go of a lot of harmful, toxic feelings around shame, but it's also about putting on your crown. And Juno was a great champion of relationships, but also women and children. So I like that adjustment there. Now, Pluto is also in a semi-sextile to the galactic center. Now, that's, you know, not an aspect where they can see each other, but the galactic center has been aspected over and activated over and over again over the last while. And we've got new information coming in. So I think this Pluto station, especially combined with eclipse season, which is a time of reset and a bit of chaos, is really going to kind of bring in new ideas, new change. And then we also have this ongoing sextile to Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune has been in Pisces for some time and will leave that sign in 2005, shortly after Pluto moves fully into Aquarius. They've been in an ongoing sextile for a long time. But that is about a rise up in spirituality in many ways. But it's also brought a lot of, you know, what's commonly known as conspiracy theories, a lot of delusion, illusion, people seeing things that really kind of aren't there. And but it's had both, but it's also brought us our awareness to the greater interconnectedness of all that is. But here's the big aspects. Pluto has been squaring the nodes all year. The exact squares were in July. There was 3 exact squares all within a week in July. But really, Pluto has been squaring the lunar nodes all year. And he's still within orb. Now, the nodes move retrograde by that's their direction, and Pluto is moving direct now. So Pluto and the North Node are moving towards each other. But any square to the nodes is a real tipping point, a real turning point, a real bending, as they say. So this Pluto station is bringing tremendous change. And then I mentioned that we had a Pluto Eris square. We had 5 exact squares to the goddess of discord and chaos, Eris, the table shaker, this who's saying, take a stand for the marginalized, the outsiders. And you can see, and I've done a video already on the North Node Eris conjunction that's exact in November. Pluto is also squaring Eris. So all that to say, yes, this really is going to be a big shift, especially because we have an annular solar eclipse just 4 days after this station. So while Pluto is still at the station point. So, oh, I didn't mean to stop the share, pardon me. I did want to quickly talk, and then we're just going to look at the numbers and things. I don't want to make this too long, but I do want to tell you how transformative this is going to be. So this is the USA's chart in the center. This is called the Sibley chart, which not all astrologers like, but I use this one. It really it works to my mind, but you know, I'm not going to argue with astrologers who study countries' charts in greater detail than me. But the main point I wanted to talk about with this is that Pluto's stationing direct at 27 degrees 53 minutes of Capricorn, and the USA's Pluto is at 27 degrees 33 minutes of Capricorn. And so we're almost having a last pass of the USA's 248-year Pluto return, which is why the US has been in more turmoil than many places, because I mean the whole globe seems to be in some chaos, but we know that the USA politically and the structures of government are in absolute chaos. And this is in the area of self-esteem and self-worth and identity, you know, in the second house. So it's really about the country's values in this. And I find it interesting that the current president, Biden, has talked about returning the soul of the country, was that his saying? But anyway, you know, there's been a lot of talk about getting back to the values of the founding of the country, and Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio, and he's a Scorpio president. That's not a bias, that's just fact. Also, before I go off here, I do want to point out that Pluto is the station, and the natal Pluto is in a quincunx to Black Moon Lilith and Hygeia in the US chart. And so Juno and Black Moon Lilith are on those, and that meant Venus was also on those. So, you know, I think there really is going to be a rise up of the divine feminine energy, so to speak. And I think we do see it rising up underneath all this chaos. being more caring, about, you know, like, let's move forward, let's like create something better, that kind of thing. Now, the US has been really through the mill. So just quickly, we've also had this Neptune opposition, which has finished, but it's still within orb. And the Neptune opposition, with the orb happening, with the orb of Neptune being 165 years, is about every 82.5 years. So that's been a big turning point as well. And I think that's added to the delusions and confusions and just people feeling very lost. Okay. And then we also, was there something else I wanted to, oh yes, Chiron. Every 51 years, we all have a Chiron return, really. And when Chiron stations direct later this year, he's going to move back and we're going to have another pass of the US's Chiron return. But as that happens, in fact, let me just quickly show you, because this is such a powerful time, particularly for the US, and probably most of my listeners are here. So April the 20th, Chiron will head back and we'll have the exact Chiron return. But before that, the North Node will have passed over Chiron too. So you can see that having a Pluto return, Chiron return, Neptune opposition, and various other things has been quite challenging. But my point is that we're moving beyond that. We are moving into a time of resolution and regeneration and healing, in my opinion. So, okay, so let's get rid of the US chart and a couple of other things, and then we'll look at the numbers. So, yeah, I do want to show you that Pluto will turn retrograde to Aquarius on May the 2nd, 2024, having moved back into Aquarius in January, and then we'll retrograde back and make the final station direct at the very last degree of Pluto, of Capricorn. And that's really that's just before the next election. So hoping that kind of pulls it in the direction that I would really like, because I do believe we kind of need some tightening up of the Constitution and things. So fingers crossed. So I'm going to stop the share and just talk to you about some numbers and things, as I always do. But first, I want to show you that I pulled a card. Oh, by the way, this was meant to be Pluto in Capricorn, this picture, because it's death and rebirth. I mean, it's a nice picture anyway. But anyway, we also know Pluto has a heart now, so I actually don't fight. I never fear Pluto. But I pulled the Four of Bees, which is the air, which is the swords usually. And this is for the station. So on the 10th, it's coming up. We're 5 days away. We're at the station point now, really. And this is about I am resting. Okay. Now, the quote from Victor Hugo with this card, with these Red Seeds tarot cards, is life is the flower for which love is the honey. And the soul journey for this card says this is time out for solitude, introspection, rest, peace, and healing. We are guided to reduce physical activity and use this time to withdraw from our everyday surroundings that may have been stressful and tiring us out. Retreat, renewal, and recuperation calls us before we take ourselves to a place of physical and mental exhaustion. Let us take time to unwind and slow down, meditate, sleep, recognize, and listen to yourself once again. Be, B-E-E, kind to yourself and find your sanctuary. Now, if you're a fire sign like me, you're not very good at just sitting. So I actually will be walking, meditating, but it's about that resting the spirit and soul. It's not necessarily so much the physical rest completely, but it really is a time to tune in. And why it's a good time. So really, you know, the US it's been going through this challenging time, but having that 27-degree Capricorn Pluto is actually the potential of the USA was amazing. And now Pluto is showing us what parts haven't worked and what parts need changing and what all that kind of thing. But the number 27 is a powerful and positive number. It's a number of courage, optimism, and success. It's a number of humanitarianism. It's a number of abundance and fortune and compassion and selflessness and cooperation and harmony and balance. It really is a quite magical number. You know, I can see with this Pluto station coming, I'm seeing it already, a rise in compassion and a rise in, you know, that desire, at least, which is very Plutonian, to heal and to have faith and trust and self-belief and to move forward with confidence and grace. So I take heart that this is a good number. And even though we've been going through the mill in the United States, it was the country was born with that degree on its in its chart. And you know, we could perhaps just say that the Pluto return is just showing us which bits have been embodied and which bits have not been embodied and which bits need to shift, change, be reborn. So now we're moving to the symbols. So the Sabian symbol for this last station direct is a large aviary, which is an awareness of spiritual messages. James Burgess says that all around us are clues and indicators, some arising as intuition. We need to train ourselves to find them by expecting them. And this is about awareness and signs and subtle metaphors in life. So keep your eyes out for these messages and synchronicities and subtle messages that are coming your way. The large aviary is birds are related to the mind and the air signs, so it's very related to this card. All right. Now the Chandra symbol. So this is a mirror covered with fine film of dust. John Sandbach, who channeled the Chandra symbols, said this degree is aware of all those things which can cloud the vision. Remember I talked about that Neptune in Pisces and the opposition? It knows that the only way to keep seeing things clearly is to keep clearing away all the non-essentials, side issues, and self-projections. It's not an easy task, and in fact may seem at times undoable. It's leaning in, it is learning, in the current lifetime, how to look beyond these obstructions, how to sharpen the picture of anything by listening to your intuition, and also how to focus on the bigger picture rather than allowing obscuring and distorting details to render vision cloudy. Oh, so the dust of the mirror may be wiped away, which is an unending task, or the inner vision may take over so that the spiritual light may be perceived. So really take time on this Pluto station for you personally to tune into this card, tune into meditative activities, to really listen to your inner voice and yourself once again. So happy Pluto station direct for almost the last time. Until next time, peace out, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.